In order to complete the Bureau project for the Bourgogne, you do have to get one win in the Tier 7 French battleship Richelieu. And so I decided to take out the Richelieu in pursuit of that win the other day, and I thought to myself as I was playing the single game that it took to bypass this step in the Bureau project, I thought, well, it's been a long time since I featured the Richelieu, and I haven't talked about it in earnest since that time. So now is as good of an opportunity as ever to speak about it, and I think it's somewhat relevant, given that we just had a sort of quirky cousin clone of the Jean Bart released into the game, or it will be released into the game tomorrow, I think. That's the pirate battleship, the Foudre, which is a clone of the Jean Bart in many ways. Of course, you do have to pay actual money in order to acquire that ship. The Richelieu, on the other hand, is sort of like a bargain bucket version of the Jean Bart. All you have to invest in order to acquire this ship is time and effort, grinding the French battleship line. And if you do, then at the end of proceedings, you come out with the Richelieu, and of course you can grind all the way up to the Alsace now, which sits at Tier 8. And why would you want to do that if you have the Jean Bart, or maybe even if you don't have the Jean Bart? Well, the Richelieu is a very good ship. It's fast, it's got great pen on the AP, it's got good HE power, the guns reload quickly, and it's got all the firepower concentrated in the front. There are, of course, some downsides. One downside is the fact that the ship is French, so it has pretty bad armor relative to other battleships, which means that even though all the firepower is, in fact, concentrated on the front of the ship, you generally don't want to play this thing the way that most people play the Richelieu or the Jean Bart. And, by the way, you don't want to buy the Foudre just because the gunpowder is all in the front. This does not mean you can push the battleship forward instantly, stop in front of the enemy, and start bow tanking. Because you're coated in 32 millimeters of armor, you're exceptionally vulnerable to high explosive spam, particularly if it comes from heavy cruisers, and that is cruisers with 203mm guns, or if it comes from light cruisers spamming HE, modified by the equilibrium of power skill. All of these cruisers can penetrate you pretty much everywhere except your turrets and your Citadel belt armor with their high explosive, which means they can get sustained, guaranteed damage over time by farming you with HE penetrations. And that's before fires even come into the picture. If you push bow in instantly into a place on the map in order to bow tank some battleships and shoot them with all the guns on the front of your ship, then you've become stationary, and it becomes very, very easy for cruisers to HE spam you and drain you of your HP pool. The same is true of destroyers. It's easy for destroyers to hit a reversing battleship. So you don't really want to just play this stationary bow in all the time, especially because you do have excellent speed and you have an engine boost. Nor will you want to shoot AP the entire time. Sometimes HE is going to be the correct choice of shell, because these are, after all, only 15-inch guns. They're smaller guns for battleships at this tier. That doesn't mean they aren't effective, though. Of course, the AP can absolutely devastate broadsides, but when broadsides are not available to you, and you're facing an angled battleship or a bow-in battleship for a protracted amount of time, you can aim at the superstructure, you can get damage that way, or you can switch to HE, which doesn't care about armor angling and can go straight through the bows of most Tier 7 battleships, dealing chunky amounts of HE penetration damage and, of course, starting fires. It's a versatile ship in that way, and it does necessitate shell selection at the appropriate time. In any case, though, we haven't done much in this game. We spawned in the center, we've gone to the alpha flank, the enemy team has been cleared away, and we only helped our team in the sense that we did 25,000 damage to those ships over there. So you might be looking at this, and you might be thinking to yourself, well, Xarkun, I'm not exactly impressed with the performance of the Richelieu as of yet. 25,000 damage, not much to show for on that alpha flank. Well, our team did capture it. I don't know that we really contributed to their capturing it very heavily. You could absolutely say that. But sometimes the Richelieu can be a late ship game, and believe me, we are going to be contributing to our team quite significantly as time goes on. We see that most of the enemy team is concentrated between the Bravo and Charlie caps, sort of to the north of them. There are only 4 ships left, 3 battleships and a cruiser, versus 4 ships left on my team, 3 of which are battleships, but importantly, 1 of which is a destroyer, and that destroyer is entering the Bravo cap now. Hopefully he'll be able to flip it. He doesn't have to worry about any enemy destroyers coming into that cap and spotting him for the battleships. The only thing he potentially has to worry about is whether that cruiser that's still alive has radar, and I don't know or remember if it is or does. I think that was a little bit of a screw-up there, but you know what I'm saying. We can see the cruiser 13 kilometers away. Still don't know exactly what it is. Okay, it's Belfast, so it definitely has radar. Definitely a threat to our destroyer, but it looks like it's sailing away from the Bravo cap as the Bismarck and the Iowa both push in. Now, the Iowa is very interesting. He's going to be playing his ship the way I think most people will probably play the Richelieu, Jean Bart, Foudre, those kind of things, and we're going to see the downsides of that sort of strategy presented in stark relief due to our maneuvering. But for now, the Bismarck is pushing in. He's heavily angled. We could absolutely chunk his superstructure with our AP, which we're going to do. But before we do that, we decided we would shoot the HE at him, and we did light at least one fire that appears to be permanently burning on him until his damage control party comes off cooldown. Also, shooting the HE at him may have lulled him into a false sense of security. I find a lot of times when you shoot HE at battleships in your battleship, for some reason, they don't respect you. They think you're not a threat. They think you can never shoot HE in your battleship and be a good battleship player. So you shoot HE at them for 2 salvos, they turn broadside in front of you, and that's when you switch to the HE or AP, and you remind them that you are not, in fact, a potato, and that there is value in shooting HE at certain times. But of course, you can always press a single button to switch to the other shell type when those times are no longer in effect. So the Bismarck has taken a hefty punishment from us, pushing in, completely ignoring us, not really doing anything, and now he's sailing away. We've got this island between ourselves and the Iowa, and that Belfast over there, he can still sort of shoot us over the island, but hopefully we can get close enough to the island that we can block some of his shots. And there we see some of his shells being blocked by the island. You can see that the Belfast is doing damage to us, by the way. If we allow him to farm us, he will do damage very quickly and very easily, despite the fact that he doesn't even have the equilibrium of power skill. He can pepper our superstructure with his HE, and he's got a good fire chance. So we need to take out this Bismarck. Doing so will theoretically make us drop spot, especially if we reverse a little bit more behind this island. Meanwhile, I want you to take note of the Iowa right there. He is bow tanking the battleship that's pushing in toward him on my team, and as a consequence, he's presenting flat broadside to my position. Now, obviously, I can't take advantage of that broadside yet, but all I have to do is push forward ever so slightly and turn my guns a little bit to, what is that, port, and there's the nice juicy broadside of a dead Iowa. There's the Citadel, we get the high caliber metal. That just leaves the Belfast and whatever that other battleship is left. We take some chunky hits from that battleship HE, and we're burning merrily from the Belfast's fire. You can see we're down well below half health, and that is all because of the HE spam of the Belfast and the Nelson. The Bismarck and the Iowa, neither of them really did any significant damage to us. So that just goes to show you how weak this ship is, and the French battleships generally are, to high explosive spam. And you can see all my bow tanking as I push in here is completely irrelevant, and it's very easy for these guys to hit us. Belfast, for whatever reason, decides to stop shooting at us, and that's when we take him out. Of course, he does shoot at us with his dying salvo, and lights 2 permanent fires while our damage control is on cooldown. What a lovely thing. These fires, of course, are going to be entirely lethal to us. We aren't going to have damage control available to us before we burn up and die in a crispy heap of terrible sadness. We can't even shoot the Nelson, whose bow we could overmatch easily, and who we could probably citadel into oblivion and pad our damage numbers. We might even be able to get a 4th kill, but if we push out here, Nelson's guns are on us, he'll shoot us, he'll kill us. In retrospect, I think I should have pushed out a little bit earlier. It wasn't entirely clear to me that these fires were going to be lethal until right around now, but obviously I don't have enough HP to survive, and I managed to give the Belfast an Arsonist medal and the It's Just a Flesh Wound medal. So, you're welcome, Belfast. I hope you enjoyed acquiring those medals, but it's not going to be enough for your team to win. This Nelson could theoretically win the game for his team if my teammates screw up, specifically if the destroyer screws up. If the Nelson kills the other friendly battleship, it doesn't matter as much, but if he kills the destroyer, we're doomed. He's managed to dodge the destroyer's torpedoes, and the destroyer is keeping him perma-spotted, but it doesn't look like the Iowa is necessarily able to take advantage of that spotting, or rather, that's in Massachusetts, I guess. Doesn't look like the Massachusetts is necessarily able to take advantage of that spotting just yet, but as soon as he clears this island, he should be able to make short work of the Nelson. And we finish the game in the Richelieu with 158,000 damage done, 3 kills, and the high caliber medal. Not bad for my first time playing the Richelieu in quite a long time, and a reminder that this ship is still very, very good indeed. It's just not necessarily one of those ships where you can push bow in and be safe. You've got too much HE spam to worry about, you've got too many torpedoes, you really don't have overmatch on your guns, but what you do have is excellent speed, maneuverability, penetration, and alpha strike on your HE. So make use of the speed. Move the battleship around the map. Use the HE and the AP. And I think you'll find that the Richelieu is a great bargain for your buck if you want to invest your time in grinding the French battleship line, and, well, then you wouldn't have to spend money on Foudre. Not quite the same thing, you don't have the same reload booster, but sort of the same flavor. Hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.